Hey there gamers, welcome back to the Board Game Code channel, and today we have a preview of Champions of Rokugan. Hey there gamers, it's Professor Meg here, and welcome back to the Board Game Code channel. Today we have a preview of Champions of Rokugan. Now, this is going to be an adventure cooperative game for 1 to 5 players, but you are playing in the Legend of the Five Rings universe, so it's all based in that lore if you really love that world. It's really beautifully done. So here you can see this is our board and everything, but please keep in mind this is a prototype, so all rules, components, and things like that are subject to change, and thank you to Monolith for sponsoring this video. Now, if you are interested in this game just from what it looks like, there is also going to be a gameplay on the channel between Alex and I, so be sure to check that out as well, because I am going to go over the game, but there's 5 different samurai for you to play as, and there's so much for you to see, so I want you to be able to see as much as you can when we are playing through the game. But that being said, this is going to be a game for 1 to 5 players, where even if you're one player, you're controlling 5 different samurai, but the other samurai are a bit easier for you. They're not as great as your main samurai, so that way it's a little bit easier for you to run through the game, but you still have a full complement of samurai for you to go into these different situations. So the game is going to have you have a scenario book, and there's actually 2 sides to this board, so there's another side as well, but you have a scenario book where it will show you exactly what to set up for the particular scenario. Now, there are also 3 different ways that you're able to play this game, and one of them is going to be the adventure mode where you're just going through and playing. There's also adventure and investigation, which I'm going to get into soon because that's going to be what I'm explaining here and what you'll see Alex and I playing. But there's also a battle mode where you are facing off against a whole lot more miniatures, so if you want to be just battling and focusing on that aspect, there's all different ways for you to be able to play this game. Taking a look at the board here, as I said, it is set up for one of the scenarios for the adventure and investigation mode. So you can see that we have 2 of our samurai, and as I noted, you do have those easier samurai when you're not controlling them directly. So those are your minor clan Bushi, and you can see that I have them set up over here. Now, normally you would have a tray for each of them, but I only have 2 just for the sake of you to be able to see everything on the table. And this is our main samurai, Matsusuko. So you can see that players have a whole lot of statistics that they're going to be looking at, starting off with your health, your life points, which is of course the most important to make sure that you don't die, but players are going to be using action points to perform all of their actions on their turn. So this character has 6, and you are able to store up to 10, so they could use some and then gain even more for future turns if you want to build up towards something like that. And they also have honor. Now, honor and glory are going to be things that are extremely unique to this game, and players are going to be keeping an eye on that throughout the entire game. You start off with specific honor, and you need to meet an honor threshold among all of your samurai to be able to win at the end of the game, and it's all really going to be affecting everybody. But there's also glory that players are able to gain, and this glory is also going to affect your honor, but it's something that players are going to be able to gain for bragging rights and things like that. But also, when you gain glory, you can hit certain thresholds to gain you a little extra bonus as well. Now, you can see all of that represented over here on this track, where players have the honor and they need to meet a certain threshold to be able to win by the end of the game. Now, for glory, they are able to gain glory throughout the game, and if they do so, if they reach this 15, you can see that symbol there, representing that the threshold for the honor would be reduced for them. However, if players are at 0 at the end of the game, it's going to make it even harder to be able to reach the honor threshold that they need, because it's going to increase. Now, you can also see your player order track over here and your turn tracker, so that's where different things are going to be marked, and as I said, you get these different bonuses when you reach certain glory thresholds as well. Now, as I said, players are also spending their honor for different things, so you can see their honor tracker here, where they may gain it throughout a different round, and at the end of the round, that's when this track will be updated. Now, looking more at our player board, we have a few other things where you have your special clan ability. This one's going to help this character to gain more honor points when they're in a melee combat, when they're outnumbered, but they also have this ability, which is for Ferocity of the Lion. Always roll 5 elemental dice when outnumbered in combat. So I think that's a great time for us to talk a little bit about what combat is going to look like in the game. Combat, just like everything else in the game, is going to cost you action points. So first, to be able to do a melee attack, we have to walk up to an enemy to be able to fight them, but then after that, we have to be able to have enough action points to be able to actually perform an attack. Alright, so taking our character here, we are going to move 1, 2, and then 3 to enter this samurai's area. So that's going to cost us 3 action points right off the bat, and then we're going to have 3 remaining, which is how many you need to perform an attack. So we are going to spend those 3 action points and choose to attack this guy over here. So this is going to be the enemy card for that enemy. Normally it's set aside, but I'm going to put it here on the center of the board just for everyone to be able to see. And this is all of their different statistics. So they have 4 action points, 2 life points, they're a size of 1, and they also roll 1 gray die and 2 white dice. So players are going to be rolling elemental dice, as I said, with this ability. So we're going to be rolling these dice here with all of the different symbols on it, but the enemies are going to be rolling the d6s over here. So this enemy would be rolling these dice against me. So when this happens, all of the dice are going to be rolled, and then you are going to have opportunities for rerolls if you need it. So we'll roll all of these, and there we have our results. So this is, I mean, you guys, I should have rolled poorer just to give you a better example. I should have, it's my fault, it's me, but this is what happened. So your enemy is only defending, but they do have other sides where you can see they would be doing attacks and damage, but right now they're just defending themselves against 1 damage point. Now, for the elemental dice, you do have quite a few choices, and if we did have different sides, we'd have a whole lot more choices, but there's a water side, which you can see that we rolled, and there's also a fire side. Now, those are your attacking dice, and you choose 1 color. So let's just say, for example, here we had 1 fire and 3 of the water, then we would be able to choose which of those we want to count as our attack. And I think, you know, with this, we would choose to use those 3 water, being pretty strong, but the other sides are going to be defensive sides. So if they did roll any attacks, we would be able to choose 1 of that color to defend with. For example, if we had 2 of these light blue, we would be able to defend, but this purple symbol allows you to set dice to the side that you would want. So they have to both be purple to be able to do this. It's a purple doing it to another purple dice, but you would be able to use this purple dice to say, I want to set this to, you know, whatever side you may choose. So with this, we are doing a ton of damage, and we didn't really have anything that we wanted to defend with, but if we did want to defend because they rolled a lot of attacks, we may want to re-roll this. And if that is something that we wanted to do, we do have our key over here, and we are able to spend it to re-roll our dice and hope for something that's a little bit more defensive if that's what we needed. Now your key does reset, so there's no reason not to use it, but you may decide what you want to roll for your different actions if you're using your action points for different things throughout that different round. So that is what combat would look like if you were fighting off against this spearman, and he would actually be taken out. But to explain a little bit more about the investigation mode of the different scenarios, you do not need to fight them right away. So for this particular scenario, you would have 3 rounds where you're able to investigate instead. You're also able to attack them if you want to choose to take them out, but you don't need to, and they're not going to attack back quite yet. Now, when you are investigating, a player is going to be on a spot that has this token here, the little speech bubbles, and you're going to attempt to investigate instead. Now, investigating is also going to have players rolling these elemental die, and you are also going to be able to re-roll them with your key if you need to, but with this you're trying to get all of the same symbol, or if you're able to and master the elements, you could get 1 of each. So if you are able to get 5 different elements on the dice, that's really great, but if not, you're trying to get as many of the same as you possible. So here we already have 3 water, but you are drawing investigation cards based on your number of successes. So this is going to be our investigation deck, and here we have those 3 successes. I think it might be worth it to try re-rolling this one, because if it does become a purple, we're able to make it a blue, or we could just roll a blue. So we'll spend a key point to be able to do that and re-roll this and see what we get, and we got another blue. That's great. Okay, so that is 4 successes. So with 4 successes, we're able to draw 2 cards from this deck, and what we're trying to do is locate the secret room where something is happening. You can see that there's numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and one of those is not in this deck. So we're trying to find the one that is not in this with deduction by finding all of the others instead. So with our 4 successes, we will draw 2 cards, and here you see we already have interesting information. So this one is number 2, meaning that we would be able to know that it is not in this room. And then after that, there's also something that is able to trigger for the players as well. But going through this deck deck is what is going to be the most important, because this is what you're going to have 3 rounds to go through all of these different areas and trying to uncover all of these different spots. Now, once you do that, you'll flip this token over and you're actually able to do it on that same spot 1 additional time. So as you can see, that's how players are able to do it a couple of times before those 3 rounds are over, but getting through all of these cards could be pretty difficult. So if players want to, they are able to choose together to rush into a room. If you have perhaps 2 choices and you might know what you think it might be in, you are able to rush that room, but be careful because you don't want to be wrong. Now, for the investigation mode, once those 3 rounds are over, things are going to start happening. You're going to have to start fighting off against different enemies, and then players are going to have to deal with all of that and also increase their honor to the necessary threshold before the end of the game. Now, they're going to be using everything that they have available to them to be able to make this happen. And as you can see, all of the samurais are also going to have these special abilities that they'll be able to do when they're attacking. So if we had chosen to try to roll those 3 different symbols, if we had made it able to happen, we would have had our controlled rage add these different add damage to it. Now, all the samurai are very different. They kind of maneuver in different ways, so you are able to use all of these different abilities to your advantage to have the samurai work together to hopefully win by the end of the game. Now, while these samurai do seem very powerful, something else that's going to be very important when you are maneuvering around the boards is that you do always have to work with 5 of them, but you don't want them together. So you are working with the honor, and there's this concept of being outnumbered in the game. So if you are outnumbered, you're actually rolling less dice unless you have a special ability. But the enemies are also a little bit weaker as well when they're outnumbered. However, if you take out an enemy that is outnumbered, you lose honor. So it's not great to do that. However, you do gain honor when you take out enemies in general, so that is something that you'll be constantly battling where your samurai are and who you are trying to spread out in different areas, because while you want them all working toward the same goals, working together or too closely can be a little bit dangerous. Now, the spots also are only able to handle 4 miniatures. They're all a small size, so the small ones, you're only able to have 4 of them in one area, meaning that you are able to melee attack from adjacent areas once there's a lot of them squished into a certain spot. So maneuvering around where everything moves on the board is going to also be very, very important after you figure out what you need to do for the different investigation modes, if that's the mode that you're playing in, or just trying to go throughout the board if you're playing throughout an adventure. Now, as a reminder, there are those different ways to play the game, so depending on what you want and how immersed you want to be or what kind of challenges you want in the game, there are many, many different ways to play this, and there's 2 sides to this board. If you want to see a gameplay on the channel, be sure to check that out and keep an eye out between Alex and I. This has been a preview of the Champions of Rokugan. I've been Professor Meg. Thank you all, and I will see you next time. Bye!